Their butts are faster than ours. Use the levels. Now this I can do.
Game on, old friend. Who are you?
Hang on.
They're turning around.
Not by choice. Their vehicles aren't designed to go off-grid. They'll malfunction on this terrain.
What about us?
Obviously not. Flynn shared them with me. I've read them all.
My name is David Marshall and I'm going to explain GST104. GST104. GST104, use of library. Now I'm going to take you through Unit 1, Unit 1, Module 1, Unit 1.
Flynn shared them with me.
Yes. Now the first thing you need to know for exam, the first thing you need to get familiar with, in that Unit 1. One of the things you need to get familiar with in that Unit 1 is the definition of library. The definition of library. Now if you check your course material, you see that it says the word library. The word library, which is library in French and in Latin, liber means book. It's actually important for you to take note of things like that. You may think that something like that is not significant, or maybe you should just move to types of library. Know the types of library. Those words, the words that are actually that seem insignificant are actually the words that you really need to understand for exam. Yes. So in exam, for example, they may ask you, the word library, which language it's actually from, what's the origin of the word library. You need to know that it's not just, it does not originate from just one language. It originated from two different languages, French and Latin. Yes, because in exam they may ask you a question such as, the word library originated from two languages. Then they will give you options. They'll say, is it French? Is it English and German? Is it Chinese and Russian? Or is it French and Latin? Or they may mix it up. That's how they may mix it up. So if you do not know the origin of the word, the two languages where it actually originated from, you may not be able to identify the right answer. Yes, so that is actually how to approach your study of GST104. It's not about just reading it. You need to understand the key things there. You need to understand the key areas there. And one of the key area is this definition of library and the origin of the word library. Where did we get the word library from? Actually, most people they pronounce it as library. It's actually not library. It's library. It's actually library. Yes. So the word library, which is library in French and in Latin, liber means book. The meaning of the word library is actually it actually means book. It is an organized collection of resources made accessible to a defined community for reference or borrowing. It provides physical or digital access to material and may be a physical building or room, or a virtual space, or both. A library's collection can include books, periodicals, newspapers, manuscripts, films, maps, prints, documents, microfilm, CDs, cassettes, videotapes, DVDs, ebooks, audiobooks, databases, and other formats. Libraries range in size from a few shelves of books to several million items. In Latin and Greek, the idea of bookcase is represented by bibliotheca. This means library in many modern languages. For example, in French, library is called bibliothèque. Yes. So what do you need to take out from there? You need to take out two things from that, or even three things. There are three key things you need to take out from that, that paragraph 3.1, which explains the concept of a library. Number one is the origin of the word library. It's actually from two languages. It's from French and Latin. And the meaning of library is actually book. It means book. It's just that we later adopted it, for a word, we later adopted the word library for a place where books are kept. So that is the first key thing you need to do. The first key thing you need to pick out from there. I believe you are making your own notes. Now the next thing there is the description. The description is this: a library is an organized collection of resources made accessible to a defined community for reference or borrowing. That is the definition there. That is a description. As a description or proper definition or description actually. For example, in exam they may bring a question such as dash is an organized collection of resources made accessible to a defined community for reference or borrowing. What are you supposed to fill in the gap? You are supposed to fill in library. So you see why you need to be taking note. You need to be taking note of key. It's not as if you were writing all the whole course material in a book. Spelling, especially those of you who have it's been long, you engaged in school processes, exam writing and all that. Even a professor, if he abandons his book for some time, for a long time, he may forget the spelling of some words. So it's important for you. That's why it's important for you to be writing out keywords. It's not that in exam time you start carrying course material. Say you want to be reading. Be picking out key points. As I'm explaining it to you, you are picking out the key points. You are writing it, even if it's in your phone notes, note app. So what you are supposed to fill in the gap in such question is library. But if you do not know how to say, if you have forgotten or you are not too familiar with it, or you mistakenly forget the spelling of library, it means you have missed that question. It means you failed that question. Imagine they repeat that question in multiple. Library. It is spelled Libray. Library. And we got the word from two languages, French and Latin. In case you don't know, Latin is actually a language. Latin was actually the official language, before we adopted English. It's the oldest languages, Latin, including French. Yes. So make sure you write out that definition or description of library. That is, a library is an organized collection of resources made accessible to a defined community for reference or borrowing. It provides physical or digital access to material and may be a physical building or room or a virtual space or both. A library's collection can include books, periodicals, newspapers. Now, what you should take out from those collection is, in exam they may ask you a question such as, dash is not part of the collection, does not include the collection of a library. We cannot find this particular thing in a library. This is not is not part of the collection of a library. So if you do not know that periodicals, newspapers are part of what is in a library, manuscripts are part of what is in library, films, maps, prints, documents, microfilms, CDs, cassettes, videotapes, DVDs, ebooks, audiobooks, database, and other formats. If you don't know that those things are part of what we can find or what are kept in library, you may not be able to identify the right answer in exam. So know the kind of things that can be kept in library. We can't keep fuel in library, for example. We cannot keep artifacts in library. That one actually belongs to the museum. Find that in the museum. Or it comes to information, sources of information, or a platform, or a material, or something that contains information. Then it's actually it's in the library. That they should go. Now all those newspaper, manuscripts, films, maps, prints, cassette, videotapes, it's not really the current ones that we have. The ones they keep in the library, are at least a copy of, a notable book or notable material. Yes. For example, newspapers. We don't just pack all the newspapers and put there. There has to be, some important, the ones that carried, notable events. So we have to keep a copy in our library so that our next generation, in 100 years' time, in 200 years' time, when our children visit the library, they can be able to see the evidence of something that happened, a notable event, and they can read it and have the knowledge. Now, in case you don't know, the easiest way to avoid a problem, is to read history. I'm talking nationally. When history is preserved, by through newspapers and all those things that we put on cassettes and all that. When history is preserved, for the next generation to be able to read it and see what happened. When history is preserved, in those forms, in library, it will be easy for our next generation to read, what happened, to know what happened, in this so century, so that they will not make the same mistakes that we made, in our lifetime. For example, the Biafran War, the Civil War. It's because they preserved it in library, they preserved it in manuscripts, they preserved it in newspaper, in our library and in our history books. That's why most of us know about it. Those of us who we were not around at that time, during the war. It made us where we are knowledgeable about what happened in the past. So we won't just be agitating, for we will not just behave anyhow, or we won't demand for war. We will not demand for war, no matter how tough Nigeria is. We will say, okay, let's find a way to fix it. Because we've read about what happened in the past, during the war. We've seen the consequences, and we are not ready to make that mistake. So how do we get to know about that? It's through library. Preservation of notable books, notable newspapers, videotapes, DVDs, cassettes, and all that. So I'm giving you a picture in your head for you to know that what we can find in library are actually the things that can, the formats we can use to preserve information. So that is it, and that is it.